Don't miss the biggest show of the summer, Kings of the West, starring Bone Thugs and Harmony, E40, Too Short, Mac 10, The Dog Pound, DJ Quick, Sugar Free, and Khadijah, live July 11th at Wells Fargo Arena. Don't miss Kings of the West with Bone Thugs and Harmony, E40, Too Short, DJ Quick, Mac 10, The Dog Pound, Sugar Free, and Khadijah. Get tickets now at HighVTix.com.
All Access. An inside look at what it takes to operate Iowa's largest entertainment and convention facilities. This is Iowa Events Center All Access. From Iowa Everywhere.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of All Access here on the Iowa Everywhere Podcast Network. We're presented by the Iowa Event Center, Wells Fargo Arena, EMC Expo Center, and, of course, the Community Choice Convention Center down there in downtown Des Moines. Adam, I know you guys, there's not a ton going on at the arena right now as you guys make that transition over to Casey Center, but, you know, the EMC Expo Center, the Convention Center are all busy this week, right?
Yeah, they are. You know, it's funny. You play that Kings of the West promo to kick off the show, and it talks about Wells Fargo Arena, and it really just kind of hit me that, you know, we've got like 2 weeks left of that name. Yeah. And we're working every day to get this get the facility updated and stuff. So, but yeah, this week, you know, the National Speech and Debate Tournament kicked off today. Huge event for our region. Scott One and his group over at National Speech and Debate do a great job. Really exciting to have them in town, and they're all over the metro area. You know, 70 different schools, I think, are hosting different events. We're fortunate enough to host them as well. And it's their 100th year. So very exciting. If you go down the Skywalk and you take the Skywalk from the Hilton up to the Iowa Event Center, you'll see an interactive display in that Skywalk that really talks about their 100 years of history. So it's really cool.
That is awesome. Cool. A lot of people down there at the arena this week. Again, like you said, you're transitioning over to Casey Center. I think I saw a video you guys posted of the Wells Fargo Arena signage coming down, and it sounds like this week, you might see some of the Casey Center signage going up. So stay tuned, right? Yeah, weather permitting, right? Like, you never know what's going to happen in June. So we had a timeline of when the signage was going to be transitioned. Chestnut Signs, who's our provider that's doing this for us, I mean, they've done a great job. They've got ahead of it. All of the Wells Fargo Arena exterior signage is down. They're prepping the locations to put the new signage up, whether they're painting brackets or fixing panels on the wall, tuck pointing the brick on the southeast corner. And as of Tuesday afternoon, we may start to see that KCC getting up on the building. So we will see how that goes. But as long as the weather stays great, that signage is going to be up. Start smelling that Casey's pizza pretty soon. That's right. That's right. You know, our culinary team went to Casey's to pizza school a couple weeks ago. Oh, nice. And so they went in because we're going to manage that operation here internally. But they went to order obviously all the ingredients from Casey's, and they went and got training in making Casey's pizza right from the source. So it was fun. Man, that's cool. That's cool. So that really you gotta stay up to date on these things. Casey's has one of the best jobs in the state of putting pizza out there. So yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, they've been a great partner so far as we edge toward this transition. I know they're excited about it. You know, there's a ton of work going on inside the arena. We've got new flooring going down. Nice. We're building out a concession stand for Casey's right there on that south concourse. Signage is all being updated, so it's moving really fast. You walk over there one day, it's going to look different the next. Well, man, as we kind of talk about the history of that in this show, we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the kind of the historical, significant milestones that the arena's hit, some of the big names that have come through, some of all of the different sporting events and events that you guys have had in the building. We're going to kind of look back on 20 years of Wells Fargo Arena, the history, and some of the memories Adam has had in the building there, and some stories to share. So we'll do that coming up in a little bit. But we want to first, of course, talk about some of the upcoming events coming to the arena. Kings of the West, as you saw in the open, July 11th. Those tickets are on sale right now. Bone Thugs and Harmony, E40, Too Short, all coming into the building. The West Coast, my West Coast is coming to Central Iowa. I'm so excited. Yeah, the first event in the new Casey Center will be Kings of the West.
artists. And so that's pretty exciting for everybody. Still tickets available, so you can go to HiVTix.com and get those. But, you grew up listening to some of these artists. And so people our age, that's the audience. So get down here, bring your kids, introduce them to some music that you listened to growing up.
I saw your marketing team did a really fun thing where they put like CDs with the names of the artists and some of their best hits. I'm like, man, that's a throwback. That's a throwback.
Yeah. I mean, I walked by the office and I see all these CDs laid out on the desk. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So obviously, wanted to do a little social media hit with that. And it was kind of fun. Got some good reaction.
So that'll be a fun July summer concert. Then you guys take a little break in August. Nothing, no big concerts coming in through August, but Jason Aldean, Breaking Benjamin, and Eric Church all in the month of September. Kind of all in the same couple weeks there, maybe a 10-day span there. You're going to have some big concerts coming through. Jason Aldean on the 19th of September. Breaking Benjamin, 3 Days Grace, September 23rd, and then Eric Church on Saturday, September 27th.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of good artists coming in. The fall is going to be really strong for us. September kicks it off. We've got some announcements coming up for October here soon that I think people will be excited about. So what we've looked at through this year is there's going to be something for everybody, right? We've had a bunch of comedians. Yeah. We've got country on the calendar. We've got rock on the calendar. We've got hip hop on the calendar. So if you can't find something that you really enjoy, you've got to be able to, if you look at our calendar over the next 12 months.
Yeah, a little something for everybody. And obviously summer takes up so many people in so many different directions with vacations. Yeah. And I guess obviously we got the state fair coming in August. So like you said, check it out, iowaeventcenter.com, HiVTix.com to find anything that's coming through the arena. And those pretty much everything you guys have announced is on sale right now too. So
everything is on sale. So other than new announcements that you'll see coming up over the next couple weeks, everything is ready to go.
Wow. So I was looking online today, and we are really coming up on 20 years of when the ribbon was cut, July 12th, 2005, on Wells Fargo Arena. It's pretty incredible. And you were there that day, I would presume. I know you said you've been there through the arena this whole time. So
yeah. So I started in February, and we opened obviously July 12th with that ribbon cutting. And what I can tell you is it's kind of a whirlwind getting through that time because it's all hands on deck. Everybody's working to help get the building ready. We're putting together the barricade or the bike rack that we have that we've set out for events. We're going around the complex, pulling weeds and doing all of that to get ready. So putting the numbers on the seats one by one. There was a lot of work that went into it, a lot of cleaning that went to it. And then you get to that date on July 12th and cut the ribbon, and you just kind of like take a big exhale. So it was a fun day.
So you guys cut the ribbon July 12th, and then your first event, I didn't know this, was Tony Hawk's Boom Boom Huck Jam on July 14th. So
yeah, we broke the building in great right from the start, putting huge ramps in there. It was a fun event. Tony Hawk was at the height of his popularity at that point in time. And, it was BMX bikes and motorcycles and skateboards and everything all encompassed. The huge half pipe in the arena stretched from one end to the other end of the hockey ice. And just nonstop action throughout that event, and got to meet Tony Hawk and thank him for coming that night as well.
Man, you guys kind of have come full circle because you got the skate park right outside the arena now, right?
That's right,
skate park. So
we thought about that. It's like maybe we bring back Tony Hawk, to skate at the skate park after being here 20 years ago. But I don't know that schedule's going to allow.
Well, you had the Dew Tour, the Olympic qualifier there just a few years ago too. So that was kind of cool. And then the first concert just a few days later, July 18th, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers was the very first concert to play at Wells Fargo Arena. Very
first concert. I know that our old GM still gives me crap that event wasn't sold out as your first concert in the arena. So when Tom Petty came back again shortly before his death, 2017, 18, something like that, it sold a lot better than it did even back in 2005. So we just our marketing's gotten better. We've got more people in our database, and we've grown a lot over the past 20 years.
Well, okay, so that was the first concert, but the first event you guys announced was Paul McCartney, and that one was a sellout, I have to imagine.
Oh, that was crazy. Yeah, so we announced that was the first announcement we ever made. And, the box office that we used at that time, because the building wasn't open yet, we had announced that event in April, and we had to use the old Vets Auditorium box office. So over there in that West Plaza area now, They had like 6 box office windows.
Yeah.
And back in 2005, you got lines. It wasn't buy on your phone or buy on the internet. It was everybody come to the box office. So the line went from, each of those windows and went down the skywalk. I mean, we had a ton of people in line for that show when it went on sale. And we actually did a commemorative ticket right up the front. I've got it. First event ticket.
Nice.
That we had displayed out there for the on sale as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, gosh, you just talk about the way tickets have been. That's probably one of the biggest changes, right? Since you guys opened, just the way you handle ticketing, right?
That's been a massive change. I mean, and marketing itself. So in 2005, you weren't posting on Facebook or Twitter and telling people to click your link to buy tickets. I mean, you were traveling around to different strip malls and the shopping centers and restaurants and hanging up posters and doing all that. And you were really pushing people. At the time we opened, the old Dolls Foods was our grocery partner and our ticketing partner. So it was dollstickets.com at that time. And so they were incentivized to sell tickets at their locations. And so they had, whatever it was, 6 locations, something like that. So we had a box office outlet at each of those locations that was selling the hard tickets. And then our box office was extremely busy as well. So now we don't even accept cash or we don't even open the box office on sale days.
Wow. Yeah, everything's just moved online. Pretty wild. Yeah. 20 years of changes coming to that infrastructure. Pretty incredible. So you talk about events, concerts, also a lot of firsts for sporting events. You guys had the first college basketball game in the arena in 2005 with Drake, and you and I both hosted games there. You had a arena cross come through, and of course the Iowa Stars. Now, obviously the Wild or the Iowa Wild are in the building, but you've had the Iowa Stars. You had the Chops. I'm trying to think who else are those the 3 now? Yeah,
those are the 3 hockey teams. So we opened up with the Iowa Stars, and obviously we were the Dallas Stars affiliate at that time. We were there for a couple years with Dallas, and then the affiliation agreement changed to the Anaheim Ducks. And so at that time, instead of just following the Ducks branding, the local ownership group, I guess they weren't local, but the ownership group at the time decided to do a name that more reflected Iowa, and it wasn't as closely associated with the parent club. So that's when they came up with the Iowa Chops. That team then left. And then it was a few years where we didn't have hockey, and then the Wild came back, and it's hard to believe that the Wild have been here for over half the time that we've been open. I mean, it seems like yesterday we were doing the announcement with Josh Fisher and, over in Community Choice, and it's been about 12 seasons now.
Yeah, I know the Wild have been a great partner of you all, partner of Iowa everywhere too. So great community team here in the state of Iowa and central Iowa as well. They do a lot of great things in the community. And then talking other sporting events, and gosh, you guys have had NBA preseason, NHL had their first preseason game there, 6-7 years ago with the Wild and Blues, and you guys just had the Utah Hockey Club come through. So you guys have had some hockey, some basketball. And then, of course, UFC Fight Night just had its debut last month. So a lot of big sporting events have come through this building, too.
Yeah, so sports will continue to be a huge part of what we do, in addition to the concerts and the family shows. And one of the funny things, we worked with the Iowa Energy at the time to bring in the Warriors and the Nuggets. And Harrison Barnes obviously was the draw, local kid out of Ames. And so we brought him in to make the announcement of the game happening and tried to set up some press for him and things. And, here's this NBA star. And I'm like, hey, we're trying to schedule interviews with, God rest his soul, Larry Kotler at the time, who was on KXNO. And we're trying to schedule this interview. And I'm talking to Harrison. I'm like, hey, we're trying to get this interview set up. Just got to know if you're available for it. He's like, oh, yeah, well, you got my number, right? I said, no, I don't have your phone number. So he gave me his phone number. That way we could contact him back and forth. Yeah. And that's one I saved. I don't know if it's still his current number, but it's kind of fun when we're watching basketball. I look over at my son and be like, look, I got an NBA player's phone number.
I covered that game for Channel 13 as media. And that was the year they went on to win their first title, right?
Yeah.
Which, oh my gosh, was that 10 years ago? Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I think it was about 10 years ago to this day. So, but it was funny because I did an interview with Steph Curry, who was a pretty big name at the time, but he wasn't the star that he is now. Yeah. So it was just it was just wild that where those guys were at that point and where they've become now. And of course, Harrison Barnes, he was the cool thing back then to remember is he had a big display in like the Iowa Hall of Pride, which is right in your area too. And I think that some appearances there. And then when he won his first title, Harrison Barnes came back to Iowa to do his parade and stuff. So still is very involved in the community. But yeah, cool to have NBA in the building. Any plans to have NBA games back in the arena? And
we would love to do that. Yeah, I think we just had the Wolves come in and play the 76ers this past year, and working with the Iowa Wolves and working with the Iowa Wild. Really, they're kind of our conduit to the NHL and the NBA.
Yeah.
I think each of them, maybe WNBA again. We've only done the one game there between the Lynx and the Mystics back in 2018. But I think that'll continue to be a part of what we do. Is probably doesn't make sense every year, but every 2 or 3 years to do some sort of professional game. The cool thing about Harrison Barnes is, that high school basketball team, when they played in the state tournament, you had Doug McDermott.
I was at Ames at that time too, so I was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the fullest it's ever been for the state tournaments. We've done the tournaments every year since 2006, and the spring of 2006, and that we had to open the third level. Just huge crowds for Harrison Barnes when they were here.
Yeah. I was in Ames from 2005 to 2009, so it would have been Barnes' first state title run. But yeah, part of that first undefeated season that he was a part of, and man, it was just this, traveling to every road game with that team too. It was just a circus everywhere we went, playing at Marshalltown and the Roundhouse to down. I think they actually played a game down at the Knapp Center at Drake too to open the season against Roosevelt. Well, I think they played like a Roosevelt down there or something like that. Just needed a little bit more space, so they played a game down there. But yeah, just a fun team to watch, and yeah, that definitely one of the cooler stories for Barnes to start. Win a couple championships at Wells Fargo Arena and then come back and play in the NBA. That's pretty cool. I don't think you ever played a game in college there, but you guys have hosted a lot of women's basketball, men's basketball, NCAA tournaments, as we mentioned, volleyball, wrestling, and then you guys, of course, have the NCAA tournament coming back in 2028. So,
yeah, I mean the college basketball, college wrestling, that's always been huge.
Yeah,
I still think back to the times we did NCAA women's tournament. That's how we really got our start.
Yeah, 2012,
first and second rounds.
28. Yeah.
That's when, for a short period of time, the NCAA decided to move those first and second round games off site instead of having them at the top seed.
Yeah.
And so luckily we had Iowa State playing in that first 2 rounds. So crowds were pretty big in 2008. That was great. And then you come back to 2012 with the regional. Pat Summitt's last game. Brittany Griner throws down a dunk. Baylor ends up beating Tennessee to go to the Final Four. And that really, those crowds were great as well. So we kept building and building. And then with 2013, when we did the NCAA Wrestling Championships, hugely successful. Everybody is happy. It's just that we're smaller than every place they've gone to since. So that's going to be a tough one to get back as the sport continues to grow in popularity. But what a great event. And we did a fan fest in Hy-Vee Hall, had the trophy over there to take photos. We had big screens for those that couldn't get into the arena because it was sold out. And just, 3 days of great wrestling.
Something we've talked about on this show is some of the artists that played in the arena before they were big, right? Before they made it to mainstream. And you sent me a list, and some of these names are just really incredible. So 2005, Adam, you had Blake Shelton open for Rascal Flatts. And I think I looked back, so Blake Shelton would have been like 27 at that time. God, he's in his 40s now, 47 or 48. So he would have been in his mid to late 20s when he played here. That's hard to think about and where his career has gone.
It's interesting. You're right. I mean, Rascal Flatts was hot at that time, and we probably hosted them 3 times in the span of 4 years, and they always put on a good show, always had good package.
Yeah.
But that's really what country music has done really well. When you look back at it, whether it's Blake Shelton opening for Rascal Flatts or Aldine opening for Rascal Flatts, then 2 years later, Taylor Swift opening for Keith Urban. So it's just they've built their artists really well. So as you look through it, a lot of people that have played her as a headliner, Morgan Wallen, Luke Combs, also opened up for other people here.
Post Malone opening for Justin Bieber. I feel like I remember when Justin Bieber played there. Was that 2016 wouldn't have been his first time, right? He played there.
No,
I remember when he was on his like first big tour and he came through, and just how big of a deal that was.
Yeah, we've got quite a history with Justin Bieber. You know, he's been here 3 times, I believe.
Okay.
That first time, and he's a young kid and doing his first big tour, like you talked about. And we actually, that show was on my birthday at the end of June. And so I took the day off. I'm like, I'm going to take the day off and not be around. We got other people who work in the show. No big deal. Well, I get a phone call. I'm sitting in a restaurant in West Des Moines. I get a phone call from Courtney Kinser from KCCI. And so the crew had, you know, that bus lot that we have down in the southeast corner underneath the banner. The crew had gone out there, and it was a hot day, and so they were having a water fight with water balloons and squirt guns and all that. And, you know, Courtney had gotten tipped off that they were there, so he brought his camera down. And he was starting to film, you know, what was going on outside the arena. And so our security company calls me, like, hey, we got this media person out there. I'm like, well, I mean, it's a public sidewalk, but I'll see what I can do. And so I call Courtney back. I'm like, hey, just, you know, get your shot. And, you know, if you can move on, they're asking you to leave. And he's like, well, it's a public sidewalk. I can be here. I'm like, I get it. I understand it. But how much footage do you need? You know, that's fine. So I hang up. Come to find out, one of the crew went over and dumped water on the camera while they were filming. Oh, no. And so I'm like, oh, great. Now it's going to be a big issue. Well, CBS News nationally picked up that story and all that. So Courtney loved it. You know, we still talk about it when I see him doing different things today. But he thought it was great to get down there and get that footage. And Bieber might not have liked it as much, but it all worked out.
Bieber fever, isn't that what they called it?
Yeah, that was quite a time. I mean, that show, at least he went on time that time. The next time he came, he was really late. Decided not to go on stage until probably after 10 o'clock, maybe after 10:30. Yeah. And I had some upset people that were coming to the box office that night that were in the house and waiting for him to start.
Oh, all right. Well, so country music is obviously huge here in Iowa, and you guys have had a lot. I mean, looking at this list too, like you said, Taylor Swift. Let's see, Kane Brown opening for Florida Georgia Line 2016. He just headlined for you guys last year, I believe, right? So Luke Combs opening for Brantley Gilbert, and Luke Combs is now one of the hottest selling country artists. So cool to see some of those names on the list too.
Yeah, what was thinking back to this? You know, Luke Combs came in 2019, right at the start of his ascension into superstardom. And at the time that we went on sale, you know, you got Luke Combs and Morgan Wallen opening, you know, 2 rising stars, but weren't really up there. The ticket price for Luke Combs' show was like $45 or something. It was super affordable. They wanted to sell tickets. It sold out in a day. And then he just took off, obviously, what we've seen him doing now and playing all these big stadium shows. So, but that's quite a bill when you look back on it, to have Luke Combs and Morgan Wallen on the same show. Yeah, it's cool. It's something cool, too, that you guys have throughout the arena, too. I think you have pictures of all the artists that have come through the building, too, right? Or I know you have, like, some areas you have, like, how many times they've been here or something like that, or the years. Yeah, so we've got, around our suite level, we've got a photo of every headliner that has played since we opened. Up in our Hall of Fame room, which is up on the upper concourse around Section 301, that you can rent out for events. We've got every performer who is part of a music Hall of Fame, whether that be the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or the Country Music Hall of Fame or whatever Hall of Fame, a Canadian Music Hall of Fame. So we've got a photo of them and then a listing of all those art when they played here and what Hall of Fame they're in. Cool. Then we also like to highlight the sporting events that we've had, whether it be NCAA or UFC, like you mentioned. So that Hall of Fame room is kind of a neat concept for us. And a lot of those photos are taken by Reese Strickland, who I know takes a lot of photos at your events, right? Reese has been with us for a long time. There's not a better concert photographer out there, I don't think. I mean, it's been such a blessing to have him capture all those moments and share the photos and, you know, get them to us. So he's a great part of what we've done and the imagery that you see that when we send out on social media. So you listed, I asked you for just like some of your interesting stories that you've witnessed. I want you to just pick one of these that you gave me and go from there. Start with one and then I'll try and pick up one too that we'll kind of close with. Well, Ringling Brothers Circus, you know, Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, that was always something that annually would come in the fall. Yeah. Right. And we're tasked with trying to give them interviews and get them out in the community and really help sell tickets, right? It's like the advertising creates the awareness, the interview transitions people into purchasers, right?
Yep.
So the first time we're setting up all the interviews, and they're going to have their head clown that's part of the show go out to do these interviews with us. Mm-hmm. So I'm talking to him the day before, trying to schedule what time I'm going to pick him up from the hotel. He's like, well, I need to be picked up at this time so I can get to the arena and get my makeup on. I said, no, these are for radio interviews. You don't need makeup for that. He's like, well, I do, because the host reacts differently if I'm in full clown makeup versus just without it on.
Part of the act.
I'm like, okay, fine. Well, so we go do some interviews, and we've got an hour in between two interviews. And one was at KGGO with Round Guy and Lou and Heather. And then we had an hour break, and then we were going back to talk to Danger. I'm like, well, do you need breakfast? Yeah, let's go out and have breakfast. So I take this clown in full makeup to Machine Shed right out there in West Des Moines, in between the interviews, and the looks that we got from those farmers and the people that were in having breakfast. I'll never forget that. But there's so much creative you could do with the circus. I mean, we did an elephant bath where we paraded the elephants down because they always traveled by train. And so there would be an elephant parade, because you had to get the elephants from the train tracks up to the arena. And so you'd close the street and march them up the street.
So you're talking the train tracks downtown?
Downtown, yeah.
Train tracks? Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
And so then we decided, well, if we can walk them to the arena, let's walk them down and do some sort of a community event. Mm-hmm. So we created this elephant bath. And so we went down and took the animal trainers down with us and hooked up the hoses and gave the elephants a bath, which they would get up at the arena anyway. We just did it publicly around lunchtime, where all the downtown workers and the Des Moines downtown school could come out and watch it, and gave everybody a little clown nose. And that was a good spectacle, because when do you get to see that up close and personal?
Crazy. Wow. Man, I'll have to dig up some photos from these, or send me some. That would have been fun to see, or maybe Courtney shot some video for kids. Yeah. Okay, so we'll wrap with this one too. So obviously Wells Fargo Arena have been a great partner of you guys, and you guys have these kids days, I know, for the Wild, for the Wolves every year, where the kids come down and fill the arena during a school day. So Wells Fargo paid for 10,000 kids to come down to a game.
So the Harlem Globetrotters comes every year. So the Harlem Globetrotters have been in the arena, and they were at Vets Auditorium before, but every year since 2006, except for 2020 when their event got canceled due to COVID, they've had a game at some point, whether it be in the spring or the winter or whatever, at the arena. And, we're working on creative ideas to try to sell more tickets. And we have this Kids Day Out program where basically we sent it out to all these companies and said, hey, if you want to sponsor this event by X number of tickets, we'll invite kids from charities or schools or wherever. Well, Tony Dickinson, who was at Wells Fargo at the time, huge proponent of what we were doing at Wells Fargo Arena, really had his pulse on what was happening here. Yeah. He said, well, what if Wells Fargo just takes this on, and what if we do it for all Des Moines public school elementary kids, and we picked a grade or something. Yeah. I'm like, well, yeah, that's great. Like, how do we want to do this? And so we worked through it. He's like, well, we want to make sure that the tickets we're buying get used. And so if we're going to commit to, I think it was 1,000 at the time. Like, if we're going to commit to 1,000 tickets, we want 1,000 tickets used. And so we're going to send out 5,000 vouchers to the schools. And then if anybody comes in after the 1,000, don't turn them away. We'll pay for that too. So it was a great partnership. We did it for 2 or 3 years. But that first year we did it, we ended up with our total crowd over 10,000 for a Globetrotters game, which is just incredible for this market. So thanks to Tony and Wells Fargo at the time.
Very cool. That's awesome. It's fun to go back to some of these. I'm sure it's just like going through your mind all the different events that you guys had. A lot of it probably blends together, but I'm sure, like you said, there's things that stand out too that have just been really cool moments and impactful moments in the arena's history.
Yeah, I mean, there's some that you like to talk about because they're fun, and there's some that maybe didn't go as planned. I mean, one quick story, I know we're running short on time, but 2012, the Super Bowl was in New Orleans, and
how could I forget?
The lights went out in the Superdome during that Super Bowl. And I remember Eric Hansen from KCCI calling us and be like, well, what would you do in that situation? Oh, no. Like, No big deal. We brought them down. We showed them how we operate our lights. And at this time, we had the old metal halide lights that, once they got warmed up, they were great, but it took them a while to warm up. And once they turned off, they had to cool all the way down before you could turn them on again. And so we're like, that would never happen. We got generators. We'd just click over to the generators. It'll all be fine. Well, fast forward to March of 2013 with the NCAA Wrestling Championships. And I'm actually in the Fan Fest we talked about earlier with my family, just kind of watching, taking a break, and the action's going on in the arena. And all of a sudden the screen got dark. I'm like, what? Why did that screen just get so much darker?
Oh, no.
Then it clicked that the lights went out. So I run across the street and try to meet up with everybody. And, the NCAA, along with Iowa State, who was our host at that time, and us all got together, and we're trying to figure this out, right? Because it was really only a blip in the power, but because of the type of lights, it was going to be a 20-minute process, right, to get them back up and running. Yeah. Fortunately, we had enough light in the arena that we didn't stop action. Everything kept going as planned. But I remember the lady with the NCAA who was on their communications team was like, well, we need to get this press conference together. We need to get a statement out to media. And my corporate office in Philly, I talked to Ike Richmond, and he's like, no, don't do that. He goes, you don't know what it is anyway. Don't speculate on what it is. Just let them know that, yes, this happened. And as we get more information, we'll follow up with you. And she's like, oh, well, okay, that's fine. We can do it that way. And I think we had one story run. It was a little blurb, but you'll never forget that night because we just, months earlier talked about that it wouldn't happen to us. And fortunately with LED sports lights, they're instant on and off. So that won't happen again.
Just some of those things that you just don't expect, but you also have to have, backup plans that you guys have always put in place for emergency preparation or any different situation that might happen. I'm sure you guys have experienced pretty much all of them, but you just never know, right?
You never know what you're going to get asked or what's going to happen. So you prepare for everything. Even the silly little things, like one classic rock band that we had, we go into our security meeting, and every afternoon before the show, you get your event management, your security team, your marketing team in the room with the tour security manager. And he's like, okay, before we move on, I'm going to go to each one of you, and you got to name me a song from the band. And I'm not a huge music guy, right? Like I listen to it, but I'm not some music historian. And so we're all just kind of sweating like, oh, we got to come up with a song that this band sings. And so ever since that day, it's like the artist is coming in. Just in case you get asked that, you got to think through what your list of songs would be if you get asked a question.
Man, so I mean, gosh, from some of the biggest shows, Garth Brooks back in 2016, got with Zach Bryan with 2 sold-out shows in 2024. Like you said, we've had Taylor Swift. Shane Gillis was just the highest-selling comedy show from Kenny Chesney, who's had the most headlining shows at the arena's history. You guys have really had a great 20 years with Wells Fargo Arena. So we put a cap on our last show before you guys transition. We just want to obviously say a thank you to Wells Fargo Arena, and it's been like you said, an incredible 20 years with that name.
It has been, and thank you to Tony that used to be at Wells Fargo and the team over at Wells Fargo. They've been great partners for the last 20 years, and really through this transition to Casey's Center, they've been fantastic in understanding, what process we need to get through in order to get the name changed. And they've been very gracious and giving us the flexibility to make some of these changes a little bit early, which will then help us as we move forward. So huge thanks to Wells Fargo. And, I look forward to doing this type of show for the convention center with Vets Auditorium, Community Choice Convention Center, EMC Expo Center. We can talk about that in a future show and talk about some of the memorable moments there.
Sounds great. Well, we'd love to hear, too, from our listeners, too, some of your most memorable shows of the past 20 years of Wells Fargo Arena. I'm sure everyone's had a different type of experience at the arena. Everyone's got different musical tastes, different event tastes. So and there's probably events that we're forgetting about, too, Adam, right over the 20 years that people will remember. So make sure you comment something. Maybe just comment your favorite show that you've seen in the past 20 years, and we'll put some of those together for our next episode too. Kind of, Adam, as you mentioned, going through some of the big events that have happened through the Expo Center, the Convention Center as well. Encourage everyone to also follow you guys on Facebook, Instagram, and check out your upcoming shows, IowaEventCenter.com.
Yep, thanks, Matt. It's been a great 20 years.
Yeah, it's been great. All right. For Adam Flack, I'm Matt Van Winkle. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of All Access here on the Iowa Everywhere Podcast Network. We'll see you next time.